10. Huh. Why are you sitting down? We have one person who stood up. Get on your feet. Get out of my chairs. Get out of my... No. Sit. We are going to do this again. Now, perhaps I was unclear. When you hear the preparatory command, room, that means I am speaking to each and every soul in this room. That will be followed by the execution command, attend. Huh. On the last syllable, huh, you will come smartly to your feet as one body. Room, attend. Huh. Did you not hear me say one body? And we will do this one more time. And if you do not get this correct, I will not be happy. Sit. No cheating. Realm, attend. Wait for it. Much better. Thank you so much. Thank you for playing along, folks. What you just experienced is in part, and I mean small part, what every single member of our armed forces goes through when they first enter training. Whether they're Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, or our brand new Space Force. Whether they go into boot camp as enlisted, service academy, reserve officer training, or officer candidate school. We do this for one really important reason. In the military, if somebody doesn't do their job, people die. Lives are at stake. And we hear over and over again from day one, when one dies, we all die. If I was really a drill instructor, because somebody got up late, you would all be doing exercises until my name changed. Now, I have a question for you, though. You got up early, you're in Vegas, I'm sure you were out late last night. Here you are, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, to listen to me and to discover how to transform your teams into radically accountable, high-performing forces that act as if lives depend on them, even if it's only livelihoods that do. I came out here, I came on stage, and I asked you to do one very simple thing, things you've been doing probably since you were about 1 year old, stand up. I had one gentleman who I'm guessing is a former service member of some, all right, Marine. We'll get into that in a second. Sounds like we have more than one here. I should probably slow down a little bit, I realize. Right, but nobody stood up. So then this is open. We have microphones out here. So this is an open question. I really want to hear an answer. How come you didn't come to your feet? Somebody. Share with me. It's no shame.
You didn't want to be the only one.
Didn't want to be the only one. Okay. Why else? Not in the service. Is that really the reason you're not in the service? Seriously, is that really the reason? I want to explore that a little bit. Or was it something else? Like perhaps you didn't understand what good it would do to rise to your feet, right? Yeah.
I didn't know I was expected to do that.
Didn't know I was expected to do it. I was unclear in my communication. Believe it or not, these are the same reasons that many of your team members don't do what you ask them to do. They don't understand the instructions, or they don't understand why they should be doing it, right? Which is really, I'm not in the service, I didn't know, I don't want to be the only one, right? No, why should I do this? Nobody else is going to do it, right? These are the very same reasons. I was unclear in my instruction, right? Room, attend, hut, for most of you, probably doesn't mean a lot. But how many veterans do we have? Let's do it this way. Army veterans, stand up. If you're an Army vet, stand up. Okay, I got the URL wrong, sorry about that. So we got Army, stay standing. Marines, I know we got Marines. You're both?
Yeah.
Awesome. That explains a lot. Stay standing. Any of my fellow shipmates, Navy vets? Any? All right, yeah, glad to see it. Air Force? Coast Guards. My cousins in the Coast Guards. By the way, if I had known what the Coast Guards do, those guys deserve so much respect. Every day, peace, wartime, they're out there saving lives, doing interdictions. Those guys are really on the pointy edge all the time. Do we have any Space Force? I'm looking forward to the day when I ask this question. We have some Space Force at vets. I didn't expect that. Awesome. So you guys all understood what I meant. First, let's give them a round of applause, by the way. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Yeah. Okay, you can sit. Everybody here understood what I meant, but failed to do it anyway. And in their case, it's because they didn't know why, right? What's the point? What do I get out of it? So the question becomes, in the military, of course, we know lives are at stake, and they're at stake all the time. $211. That's these guys right here. Right. So for those of you unfamiliar, and the legal officer is not a lawyer. I didn't even get to play one on TV. I'm still looking for that role, right? But what we are is a lay person who gets a solid month of training in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and we're responsible for administering the legal justice system in commands that too small to have a lawyer, too small to have a JAG. And so our job was basically to handle the reports that come across your desk, because unlike in most of your businesses, which are for the most part small businesses, I get, when somebody gets in trouble, paperwork is generated in the military. In fact, paper is generated in the military when you get up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, and when you need new toilet paper. It's amazing. And so that paperwork would come across my desk, and I would have to make a determination what to do with it. And that determination could be anything from as extreme as a courts-martial. And a general courts-martial is a felony trial that could result in prison time. So that's pretty extreme. If it's not quite that bad, it could go to what's called an Article 13 hearing. Now, in the Navy, we call that captain's mast. My Marine brothers and sisters, they call that office hours. As far as I know, the Army and Air Force are too boring to give it a fancy name. They just call it an Article 13 hearing. And what that is getting in trouble from the boss. So the commanding officer has certain punitive powers that they can administer. Realistically, it's on a whim. I mean, the standard is that it's preponderance of the evidence, right? Fancy legal talk, which really means they think it happened. That's all it comes down to. And they could do things from as extreme as reduce somebody in rank. So that's a actual demotion, which of course is a permanent. When I say permanent, you have to qualify for the rank all over again. Reduces your pay proportionally, reduces your responsibility. And because you have this black mark on your record, getting that rank back is really difficult. So that's pretty extreme. They can restrict you to quarters. Yeah, you heard me right. You guys call it being grounded, but in the military it's being restricted to quarters. They actually have special restricted barracks, and you're allowed to go to work, go to the chow hall, and go to the special restricted barracks. There's no entertainment, no nothing, and that's up to 2 months of that, which is pretty extreme. They can reduce your rate, your pay by half. Boom, gone for up to 2 months. And my absolute favorite, if you're at sea, not only can they restrict you to quarters, but they can also reduce your rations to bread and water for 3 days. Can you imagine living off nothing but bread and water for 3 days? That's pretty punitive. And of course, not everything came to that level where we needed to do something like that. Sometimes we just needed a good talking to. We called it a verbal reprimand, and that fell to me. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to talk about how to have that conversation. Before we do that, I have a gift for you. One of the biggest challenges I had in my career was having those difficult counseling conversations with people, right? How many people like to do that, have that challenging conversation with that underperformer? How many people enjoy that? How many people think, we have a couple people who enjoy it. Good. How many people think they know what to say, or they feel sort of awkward, like, what am I going to do? Right? Because most of our experience is what? It's a butt chewing. Isn't that typically how it is, you know? And that doesn't do anybody any good. The person, and I tell you because I've been there, the person getting his butt chewed out doesn't walk out feeling motivated to do anything other than avoid it. But that doesn't motivate them to excel. It motivates them to just hit the minimum so they don't have to do it. Do we want our people to do the minimum, or do we want them to excel? Excel, of course. So a butt chewing isn't the right answer. We need to have that conversation in such a way that they feel inspired, not motivated. And here's the difference. Any equestrians here? Any people who ride horses? No? Oh, good. I can tell the story and nobody will correct me. No, seriously. When I was in college, I used to go rent horses outside Philadelphia, a place called Tyler State Park. Anybody from my city of brotherly love here?
From Lancaster.
Lancaster, okay. So do you know Tyler State Park? Yeah. So there used to be a stable, this is back in the 80s, right outside there. And my friends and I would go, we'd rent horses every couple of weeks. Nobody taught me how to ride. If you know anything about rental horses, they're nags. They don't want to move from the barn. So I'd get on the horse, I'd give him heel. He'd look at me, I'd get off him, I'd drag him out of sight of the barn, I'd get on the horse again, I'd give him heel, he'd slowly walk down the trail. This is not the way John Wayne did it. That horse needed motivation. It was external, the heel. The more I kicked him, the more he moved, but the moment I stopped, he stopped. One day I rented a horse named Skittles. Skittles was powerful of energy. Now, Skittles' problem wasn't moving, it was moving where I wanted him to. Skittles was inspired, and he would back me into trees and back me into bushes, so it was my job to learn to guide Skittles, and eventually we came to an understanding that he would go where I wanted him to, and we had a lot of fun together. We want team members who are inspired, where we just need to guide them along the way, and a butt chewing doesn't do that. So how do we do that? Well, if you take out your phones and you scan this QR code, you're going to get my best step-by-step guide to improving employee performance. Now, the reason I want to give this to you now is when we get to this part of the presentation in a little bit, I know a lot of you are going to want to take notes. I've done this countless times, and every time I got to that part, I'd see heads down. And here's the problem. If you're taking notes, you're actually missing out. So when I was in college, for me, freshman year was the best 3 years of my life. I know it's funny, and it's also true, unfortunately. I didn't go to school prepared to study. And after a while, the University of Delaware said, thank you very much, and they put me in what they call a non-matriculating status, which is the fancy way of saying you're kicked out. I went back home and I tried to get a job because I was a smart guy. Who wouldn't want to hire me? I was a hard worker, except for in school. And then I discovered nobody wanted to hire me because I failed out of college. It didn't matter how smart I thought I was. See, when I was in college the first time, I wasn't inspired. I didn't know why I was in college. I was there because my parents expected it of me. I was an engineering major because I was good at math, but I had no idea what engineers did other than they were good at math. So I went to school, I partied my tail off. I wish I could remember most of those days. And then I got kicked out. When I couldn't get a job, I went back to night school, and now I'm inspired. Now I need that college degree. And so I went to Drexel Night School, and I remember sitting in a calculus class. This is the third time I've taken this class. I had taken it twice before. Instead of sitting in the back like I used to, I'm sitting in the front. And now I'm not taking notes. Now I'm feeling guilty as heck because you're supposed to take notes in school. All around me, everyone's scribbling down. The professor's up on the board writing his stuff, and all of a sudden he stops and he looks. Put your pens down. Nobody take notes. And you hear this sort of, what? He says, listen, folks, if you're taking notes, you're waiting for me to finish writing and explaining what I'm talking about. Then you're starting to write what I put on the board while I'm going on to the next conversation, which means you're not listening to me. So you're going to get home tonight, you're going to have all these notes of things that I put on the board, and you're going to have no idea what that means, and you're going to try and teach yourself calculus. And if you could teach yourself calculus, you wouldn't be here. I don't want to see anybody taking notes. Well, for me, it was this big weight off my shoulders, and I discovered that I learn better when I focus and pay attention. So I don't want you taking notes. So if you download this guide, the really important stuff about what I'm saying, how to implement it, it'll be all laid out there for you. And I will tell you, in the interest of full disclosure, you are also signing up for my newsletter. It comes out twice a month. If you don't like it, just unsubscribe. I promise you I don't take offense. I only put out one article at a time. It's completed in a newsletter, so you don't have to click to any web pages. I think it's useful information, and if you do, keep subscribing, and if you don't, unsubscribe. I promise you I don't take offense. So I'm going to leave this up for the rest of our presentation, and let us continue. So here I am, legal officer of Fighter Squadron 211, and one day I get a report across my desk. Petty Officer Gill, dereliction of duty. Gill. Oh, Gill, right. He's the new guy. Just checked on about a month. Wow, a month and he's in trouble already? That's pretty quick. So here I get this report about this brand new petty officer, Gill. Been with the command for a month, and he was written up for dereliction of duty. Sounds pretty severe. What it really means is he wasn't doing his job well. Don't get me wrong, at some levels, dereliction of duty can cause prison time. It can be really severe if a commanding officer does something so bad that people get badly injured. But in this case, this is just somebody not doing their job. I'd pick up the phone. Hey, Chief, yeah, it's Lieutenant Rosenberg. Yep, yep, I got the report on Gill. I know, a month, really? Some guys. Listen, I'm just going to try and have a conversation with him. Maybe we can nip this in the bud, because if it gets to captain's mess, we both know that it's typically downhill from there. Yeah, let's see if we can square him away. When can you have him? 13:30? Perfect. 1:30, Petty Officer Gill is going to come up to my office, and I'm going to have that conversation. That's the good news. The bad news? I have no idea what I'm going to say to him. None whatsoever. In my time in the military, up until this point, I had been in a division officer, I had been a lot of other collateral duties, so we don't just fly. Actually, flying is collateral to what our real jobs are. Our job is running the squadron. But this is the first time I was going to have to actually counsel somebody on their behavior. Well, what am I going to do? So I remember thinking back and talking to my dad in my mind. I'm going, Dad, what do you do? See, my dad and I were close. My dad was a school teacher in Philadelphia. He grew up or taught in an area called Kensington. So we don't have any Philadelphians here, so you don't know Kensington. But if you've seen the movie Rocky, right? Seen Rocky? Rocky takes place in Kensington. It is a terrible, godforsaken neighborhood. And when I say terrible, we're talking about generational welfare, where graduating high school is an accomplishment. That people don't even aspire to college. Being a doctor, a lawyer, a profession, you know, the highest, and trust me, I don't say this in any demeaning way. I think the trades we need more tradesmen. But that was it. Like, if you're good with your hands, you went into the trades, you're apprenticed, you got a union job or something like that, and that was like a phenomenal job, and you were set for life. Most people stood on welfare. My dad taught grandchildren of the kids he originally taught over 40 years, and he had a higher than average success rate, making sure that people did well, more than his other teachers. And I remember as a young man when I was struggling, right? You think, oh, Dad, with a dad like that, I'd have done really well initially. It wasn't the case, right? You can't teach your own children. It's an unfortunate rule in life. So it took me bloodying my nose a few times to figure it out. But I remember talking to him at one point and saying, why are you so successful? And some of the students, by the way, I'm still in touch with. As I went through high school, my brothers and I went through high school, we became friends and we're still in touch with. And they'll all say the same thing. My dad said to me, the secret is connecting people with what you're asking them to do, with why it's important to them. See, this is the thing most business owners, and when I ran my first couple of businesses, I had to figure out for myself, is that people will do what's in their own best interest, which may or may not be the company's best interest. And if we can align the two, then we have somebody who's going to do what we need them to do because it's what they want to do. My dad knew that everybody listens to their own favorite radio station. It's the same one. It's WIIFM, and everybody in this room loves that station. It stands for What's in It for Me. When I went to school the first time, what's in it for me? A college degree. Who cared? I'm a smart guy. I don't need a college degree. I'm doing it because my parents expected me to go to school. I didn't have a purpose. So it starts with you and your company. What's your purpose? Why do you exist? How many of you have actually sat down with your leadership team and figured out why you exist? Yeah, one. Okay, and what is the reason your company exists?
We're obsessed with helping people grow.
And what is it you do?
Trainertainment. I have a training and a coaching company.
Okay, perfect. Trainertainment, I love that. Yeah, right. Obsessed with helping people grow. My mission is to replace Thank God It's Friday with Thank God It's Monday. Imagine for a second what it's like if everybody who worked with you looked forward to every Monday morning. Now, that doesn't mean you can't look forward to Friday too, because we all need the break, but didn't dread Monday. I had one job where I dreaded Monday. I will never do that again. That was the worst thing in my life. So why do you exist? And it's outside of you. It's not to put food on your table. That's a requirement to achieve whatever it is you're looking to accomplish. But when you know why you exist, then you can hire people who are inspired by your mission, who also get excited by it. When I ran a moving company in San Diego, our purpose was to reduce stress. That's why we existed. We're a moving company. What's that have to do with stress? Well, moving is one of the top 3 stressful things in a person's life. So if we reduce stress, we made moving that much more enjoyable. And we got them into their new home that much quicker, or new house that much quicker, which then can become a home. Right? And when we hired people, we talked about that. And if people poo-pooed that, if they went, guess what? We didn't hire them. If they got excited about it. And then in all of our meetings, we talked about it. When we created a new procedure, we would vet that procedure against our stated desire of reducing stress. And not just stress in our customers, stress in our employees. Right? So we had policies like, if you're going to want to take time off, if it's 1 week or less, the answer is yes, unless the answer needs to be no. Right? So the default answer was always yes, so people knew that. Right? Now, I also wanted to reduce my stress, which meant when you came to me with a time off request, you said something like, here's who's going to cover my job for the week. And it was your responsibility to do that, right? Reduce the stress all around. Everybody knew who was covering for everybody. It worked out great. Our vendors, we told them we want to reduce their stress, which meant we didn't nickel and dime them to death. We asked for a fair price, and we stayed with them, and we were loyal to them, and we told them what our expectations were. And when we needed help in a hurry, that we were out of boxes or whatever it might be, we knew they were there for us, and they were. And if they weren't our vendors for too much longer because they weren't reducing our stress, right? It becomes our ecosystem. So what's your purpose? Why do you exist? You're in entertainment. But entertainment's super important. Right? I mean, the world's oldest profession is entertainment. No, I don't mean that one. That one didn't come to exist until money existed, but entertainment existed long before money existed. It's the first thing humans did as a species once we learned to communicate with each other. We are pack animals, and we got together, and we learned through stories, which is entertainment, through song, through dance. The earliest men and humans entertained each other. It's what they did after hunting, eating, sleeping, and making children. So why do you exist? Get together with your team, figure that out, and then use that as you're vetting new people. You want people who are going to be accountable, make sure that they're on the same page you are when it comes to what it is you're going to do. It's not enough just to know your purpose. You also have to train to it. So Petty Officer Gill shows up in my office, 13:30. I hear, I love these microphones, but on the door. Here, does that work? I take a look, and there's Petty Officer Gill. Petty Officer Gill, reporting as ordered, sir. I said, come on, Gill, close the door, have a seat. He comes in, he shuts the door. By the way, when you're going to have this conversation, you want to do it in private. The reason for this is simple. You've probably all heard the saying, praise in public, chastise in private. Right? If you haven't, you have now. I want to get to chastise in a second. I don't like that word. We're going to do away with that word in a few seconds. But let's talk about praise in public. Why is that? So praising does something anthropologically that we can benefit from. We, I mean as leaders of organizations. When somebody gets praise, right, great job for standing up, for example. Okay? Only one who followed instructions. Awesome job. Right? Immediately, dopamine is released in the brain. Dopamine's a neurotransmitter. And it's designed by nature to make us feel good when we accomplish a task. So we kill the boar, right? We're out there hunting, we're a pack, we go on a boar hunt, we kill the boar, we're going to eat today. We're not eating right away, right? That boar has to be stripped and all it prepared, and it's going to be several hours before you're going to eat. The human being needs to know immediately that was the right thing to do. So nature gave us dopamine, and we go, oh, we feel great. Dopamine. That's dopamine's job. When you praise somebody, they get a release of dopamine. They feel good. That then locks in the behavior that they just did, and they will do it again because they want that dopamine hit. So praising helps people so they will repeat the behaviors that you want repeated. What about everybody else? Why in public? Because not only do we learn by being praised and getting dopamine, there's this thing called observational learning. And observational learning works like this. If I see somebody do a task, do something, and then get praised or rewarded for it, doesn't have to be they get rewarded for it, my brain also vicariously experiences that same thing to a lesser degree. I go, oh, right, that's why I feel so proud of you. You got that award, right? That's why we say things like that. It's because it's us also participating in that small dopamine hit, not to the same extent. And then our brain goes, wait a second, I kind of like that. And we tend to do it some more. Just in case you don't believe me, let's do a little test here. How many people have dogs? How many of you, keep your hands up if you went through obedience training? Okay. Did you then get another dog that you didn't put through obedience training but also learned to sit, stay, and all the other things? Sure. My wife and I have been married 25 years. We got 2 puppies 24 years ago. We went through obedience training, which, by the way, is best in a school because of this observational learning. They see each other learn, and they learn. And we took them home, and they were really good, and then we got our 3rd dog, a beautiful little Rottweiler with a tail, by the way. Only Rottie with a tail I've ever seen. Don't bob their tails. Sorry, my little thing there. That Rottie learned so fast, it was amazing. We never put her through obedience. We then got a little pit bull. We had now 4 dogs. The Pitty learned like that. The other 2 passed away. We got a long-haired retriever, flat-coat retriever. She learned like that from the pit bull, and so on and so on and so on. We only went to obedience school once, observational learning. So when you praise in public, the rest of your team sees what you want to do, what they will need to do to get praised, and then they will start doing it as well. By the way, you want to tie that in with your values at the same time so they understand how to make those decisions. We chastise in private. In other words, we counsel, and I like the term counsel in private, right? Chastise is about making people feel bad. We don't want them to feel bad. We want them to feel good. We want them to feel empowered. And the challenge is, at 31 years old, as I said, this is the first time I had done this myself, is that I didn't know what to say, and I was kind of afraid of doing it wrong. And since this time, I've actually worked with a lot of business owners through my coaching, and I do this accountability academy where people come in for 3 days and they learn how to create and develop accountable teams. And I hear this time and time again, I'm afraid if I talk to this person who may be underperforming here, but they're really good over here, that I'm going to lose them. And they're coming from a place of fear. And the challenge is, we only hold people accountable that we think are capable. Sit on that for a second. We only hold people accountable that we think are capable. So if we don't think somebody's capable, we're not going to hold them accountable. We may say, hey, can you do this for me? Like if you ask your 7-year-old to cut the front yard, right? And the lines aren't straight and there's pieces of grass that wasn't cut. You're not going to punish them for that. You might teach them, say, okay, here's how we do straight lines and we overlap, right? But you're not going to punish them. You're not going to hold them accountable for failing to do it because they're not capable yet of doing it. Your 17-year-old, you may not ground them for it, it's probably extreme, but they're not going out till they get the yard done right. We know that, right? They're not borrowing the car till their yard's cut right. We're holding them accountable because we know they're capable. When we fail to hold people accountable, we're sending a signal to them that they are not capable, and if they don't think they're capable, they are not going to rise to the occasion. So we need to hold people accountable. We also need to model the behaviors we want in our team. If it's my job to hold people accountable, which it was as a legal officer, which it is all of our jobs as leaders and managers in our organization, if it's our job to hold people accountable and we don't, we're telling our team, you don't have to do your job. They will mirror your behavior. And I will tell you this, you could probably infer from what I'm saying that in the half dozen companies I've run over the last 30 years since getting out of the Navy, I'm pretty good at honing in on people who are causing problems and then helping to rehabilitate them, even if sometimes that rehabilitation means helping them find another position in another company. And every time I've done that, the rest of the team goes, "What took you so long?" It seems no matter how quickly I act, it's never fast enough. There's always damage done. So if you don't act at all, what happens is your people who are really responsible start going, "I don't care. They don't care. Why should I care?" And then they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to pull their throttles all the way back, or they're going to move someplace else where they feel appreciated, because they don't feel appreciated. So if you want a team that's going to be accountable, you need to be accountable yourself in everything you do. Your standard has to be much higher than you want them to be, because they will never rise beyond your standard. You have to have the highest standard in your organization, period. All right, so Gil comes in, sits down, and then I asked the most important question you could ask somebody in this situation. What happened? You can say, "What happened?" You can say, "Tell me about it." You don't want to assume anything. Yes, I have a report. Yes, I have all this information. Yes, I only have one perspective. And frankly, my chief's perspective is the least important. I want to know what's going on in his head. And if I start taking a position and assuming I know what's going on in his head, I'll never find out. That's why I close the door. It's why I have him sit. I want him relaxed. I don't want him locked up, braced, tensed. No way. I'll never learn a thing. Right? Cops use the same technique, right? They get people to relax before they do an interview. Not an interrogation, an interview. I want them to relax. And I open-ended question. "You know, you got this report. Tell me about it." "Well, sir, I joined the Navy about a year ago. I recruited, and I was excited. I tested really, really well, and they told me I was going to be an electronics technician. And that excited me. I wanted to be an electronics technician. So I signed up, and I went to boot camp. Yeah, boot camp was kind of a big, pain in the tail, but everyone knows that. And it was kind of cool learning about the military and how to dress and how to tell rank. And, I always liked movies, war movies anyway, so I thought that was kind of cool. But, I got through it. And then they sent me to C School. Oh, by the way, folks, C School in the Navy is first-level technical training. So let me translate for you, right? They sent them to technical training. And off I went to learn about being an electronics technician. And I tested really well because I love this stuff. And so I had my choice of commands, and I saw Fighter Squadron 211, VF 211, had an opening. And I'm like, let me go there because I could get to work on the F-14, the plane from Top Gun. Oh, my God, this would be so cool. I can't believe I'm going to get to do this. And I showed up here. And the Command Master Chief said, "Welcome aboard. We're going to assign you to the 1st Lieutenant's Division." Right now, I'm sure my non-Navy and Marine friends are looking at it. Well, what's 1st Lieutenant? Sounds pretty prestigious, right? Yeah. It's typical military stuff. 1st Lieutenant's Division is what we call our janitors. These are the folks who are responsible for cleaning the squadron spaces, sweeping the floors, mopping the floors, cleaning the toilets and the bathrooms. We don't have some special job rating where people go to school to be a janitor. No, we take new people and we make them janitors for a period of time. And this is one of those jobs that people got to do. And he was despondent. This isn't what he set out to do. And it's understandable. It's not what he joined to do. And we failed to set expectations. Somebody should have said to him, "Listen, you're not necessarily going to go right into the shop when you go to the command." That's another problem that we have is communication. Setting proper expectations. When we don't do that, we get people who are disgruntled because they're expecting one thing and they get another. And that goes to our credibility. And once that goes away, once our credibility goes away, it seems like our integrity goes with it. It may not really be our integrity, it's an oversight on our part, but from their perspective, we can't be trusted or believed anymore. And this is what's going on in his head right now. So I look at Gil, I say, "Gil, I understand. I empathize. Not sympathize, empathize. Right? Sympathy is feeling the feelings. Empathy is understanding the feelings. And feelings are never wrong. I know that sounds woo-woo stuff, right? Or something, right? But it's true. Feelings are never wrong. Feelings are just feelings. They just are. It's a chemical reaction. It's literally a chemical reaction in our body. So let's not negate them. Let's try and understand from their perspective without necessarily sympathizing. Because we don't want to feel their pain. We just want them to know that we understand their pain. Hey, if I went through a year and a half of flight training and then I came here and I wasn't allowed to fly, I'd probably be pretty bummed. But now I got to tie things to what's important to him. This is where my dad comes into the story. And I think back to what my dad said, and I said, I want you to think for a second. Imagine you're in the shop. You're no longer first lieutenants. You are in the shop. You're working 18-hour days like we all are. We're getting ready for deployment. We're working hard. It's the end of the day. You're tired. You may be a little hangry. You're going to go back to your barracks. You're going to go to sleep. You're going to wake up tomorrow, and it's going to be Groundhog Day all over again. Same thing. Rinse, repeat until we get ready and we deploy. So last thing you want to do is you're going to go to the head. That's the bathroom, folks. You're going to go to the head, and you want to just clean up a little bit. Splash some water in your face, get some of the grime of the day off before you go back to the barracks. And you walk in, and the place is a pigsty. I mean, there's toilet paper on the floor. There's stains in the toilet. There's no toilet paper in the rolls, but, I'm just going to go to the sink. I'm going to wash up, and you go over to the sink, and you realize there's no paper towels, and even if there was, you can't see your face in the mirror from all the water spots. And you just think, oh, my God, am I the only one that's working hard here? So you go back to your barracks, and you just question why you even joined the Navy. I mean, this just stinks, right? You lay in bed at night, and you toss and turn. You don't get a good night's sleep, and you wake up the next day, and you're half asleep still, and you come to the squadron, and you start working, and your mind's not really involved, and you miss something. And you miss something important. And later that day, that aircraft goes for a check ride. And maybe it's me and the skipper flying or another aircrew. It doesn't really matter who, but something goes wrong, and I mean terribly wrong. How would you feel? Now let's flip the script for a second. Instead of when you went into the head and everything was filthy, it's the night before, and you went in and it gleamed, it sparkled, it glistened, a little ding, and there's that Mr. Clean gleam. And you think, wow, I'm working hard, but so's everybody else. I'm part of a team, and everybody's pulling together, trying to get the job done. And you splash water in your face, and you feel good, and you go back to your barracks, and you hit the rack, and you sleep the sleep of the dead. And you wake up content, ready and eager to tackle the next day, and you go to work, and you don't miss anything, and nothing untoward happens, and it's just another day of you working hard along with everybody else. You see, as first lieutenant, you seem like you have an unimportant job, but you don't. You affect the morale of everybody around you. You have that ability to uplift or to push down. When the squadron spaces are clean, it inspires everybody to do well, and when they're not, it inspires people to also not do their job. But that's not the only reason for you to do this. Do you think the chiefs know you're not happy here? Of course they do. There's only two types of sailors in the First Lieutenant's Division. There's either newbies like you, who haven't proven themselves yet, and so they're not in the shop, and they're looking for you to prove yourself, and I'm going to come back to that in a second. Or there's the screw-ups who've been to the shop and have proven themselves not to be trustworthy, so we stick them in First Lieutenants where they can do less harm. Not no harm, less harm. Chiefs know that you don't want to be there. And if they see you doing your best, no matter what, they're going to say, if this guy is doing this well, working this hard, doing a job he doesn't want to do, what's he going to do in the shop doing what he wants to do? And they're going to fight to get you out of here as fast as possible. I don't know if you're going to spend 4 years in the Navy or 30, but whatever you do, bloom where you're planted. You're going to have some crappy jobs. Whatever it is, do the best you can. Be that rose that blooms in a pile of manure, and I promise you, somebody will pluck you out and put you in a beautiful garden. I sent him on his way. I wouldn't remember this story at all. This story happened 1992. Somebody do the math for me. Over 30 years ago, I think, at this point. Yeah, 30 years ago. Except for what happened about 9 months later. Now, before I get to that, though, I want to open this up to any questions we have. Questions about how to transform a team, any questions at all about what we talked about. If you have a specific questions about your shop, your workplace, maybe something going on there you need some assistance with, I don't want to take up everybody's time with that. Okay? So if that's the case, when we're done here, I'm going to be out in the hallway. Just come and see me. And we can schedule some time on the phone or on a Zoom call together, 30 minutes, whatever it takes. And I promise you, I will give you the best counseling you've ever received, the best guidance, my best advice. It'll be powerful, powerful counseling. Other people sometimes ask me questions about, what other sort of work I could do or things of that nature. Same thing, see me over there. And if you don't want to schedule it right then and there, just give me your business card and write the following on your business card. FU. No, 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 no. It means follow up. And when I get back to my office, I'll send you an email, and then we can schedule that time together. So sort of keeping the personal or the detailed stuff aside, what questions do we have? I want to open it up. Anybody?
If you feel your business is flat, scrubbing the toilets to working on flying the plane, what if it's a level playing field where everybody's collecting, everybody's cleaning, everybody's doing the same roles across?
So what is your question, though? How do you get people motivated, or how do you grow your business?
His motivation to clean the toilets is the rate. If the company is flat, where you do all the tasks throughout it, where's the motivation?
Sorry about that. Is your company growing? Do you plan on growing your company?
Absolutely.
And are you working towards that growth?
Absolutely.
And as you grow, will it continue to stay flat, or are you going to have to create some structure?
There's need for structure.
What happened? Did I answer at all?
But the number of roles need. So that we're
I mean, the truth of the matter is, and can you guys hear me okay? Okay. The truth of the matter is, if a company is not growing, people don't see an opportunity for growth with them, right? It's a requirement. So what we're really talking about is safety and security needs. So if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, what our job is as leaders is to create self-actualized people, the peak. People are doing what they're meant to do, what they're born to do. In order to do that, there's 4 needs that need to be met. What we're talking about is the second need, which is safety and security. If a company is not growing, people don't see that growth with them. They don't have that security of knowing I can grow within the organization, because then it becomes an attrition. It's why an environment of corporate growth is absolutely critical to holding on to top performers. Because if they don't see where they can grow within the organization, the people you want are the people who want to grow. And so it becomes a challenge. So what I would say to you is how can you structure your business so it could grow faster, bigger, stronger? And I don't mean overnight. I'm not one of these $0 to $1 bazillion in a day. I was talking to a company the other day. It was 9 people in their year 1 and 35 people in year 2, and they're like 4 offices now. And that can happen. I don't know your business at all, so I don't know about your business, but as long as you're growing steady, people will see the opportunity to grow. And there's a lot of different strategies, growth by acquisition, et cetera. When we were in the moving business, that's what we did, is we started acquiring other moving companies, which afforded other opportunities. What I will tell you is at the moment we defined a career path, the moment we said to people, if you want to get off the truck, which is backbreaking work, I think it's like the second hardest job to roofing, which I think is like the worst job in terms of safety in the world. But moving is, I think, number 2. To get off the truck, you need to become a lead mover. We had problems getting people to become lead movers because it's a responsible job that's still only paid $14 an hour. This is 2012, 2013. And so people didn't want to do it until we said, when you qualify for lead mover, then you qualify to go in the office, to become an estimator, to become a safety inspector, to become other things that's not backbreaking. All of a sudden, we had more lead movers than we wanted, and we got to pick the best because we had a career path. So, but if you're not growing, that doesn't happen. So maybe not the answer you're looking for, but that's unfortunately the answer. Good question. What other questions do we have? Yeah.
So the techniques that you're talking about, traditionally work well in the age group of most of the people in this room. The millennial generation seems to want to operate under a whole different set of rules where a lot of these things that you're talking about, they don't care about. So what tweaks to your system do you recommend for that age demographic?
So first of all, yeah, it's interesting because millennials now are, I think, are in the 40s now. We think of millennials as 20-somethings, but I can't remember, that's like Gen Z or something like that. And I was actually talking to a woman who's a millennial who talks about generational differences now. The underlying principles of Maslow's hierarchy hasn't changed. It's how they perceive safety and security, right? So for us, for those of us silverbacks, as I like to refer to us, I'm a tail end of the boomers. I think I see a lot of my boomer brothers and sisters out here. For us, the sort of that hard work ethic, nose to the grindstone, 60, 70-hour work weeks, that's what our parents did, that's what we did, right? That was our ethic. Millennials and younger generations are looking for more work-life balance, and even younger than that, they're also looking for some social give back. So the question then becomes, how do you provide safety and security to somebody who's looking for work-life balance? Right? And we got some of that over the last 2 years. Some of the silver lining things that came out of the pandemic is the ability to telecommute. I look at my wife, she's a retired prosecutor, and there was no reason she had to go into the office if she wasn't in court. But the municipality of San Diego that she worked for as a prosecutor, they said, no, you have to come into the office. Everything was available online. It was ridiculous. All of a sudden, the pandemic broke out, and she was retired at that point, and all her former coworkers were working from home, and she's like, oh, why couldn't I do that? Right? So work-life balance is a big one, for millennials, right? So we need to find out, and this is where you engage your people. You talk to them and ask them what they need, right? It's not up to us to come up with the answers. It's up to us as leaders to come up with the questions. Our team needs to come up with the answers, right? When the moving company got sold in 2013, it was bought by a bigger company, and I went from president to general manager, right? Change of title, same responsibility, but I had an EVP I had to answer to. And they completely changed our systems. And I can't remember what the problem was, but I remember we came across a problem, and I said to the EVP, I said to her, we need to bring this up to the team and come up with a solution for it. And she said, no, we can't bring it up to them until we have a solution. I'm like, oh, wait, that's not the way I used to work, right? The team, the collective, they'll have your answer for you, right? I don't know your people. If I met with them and did something like that, yeah, we could probably do some work there, but it's your people will tell you what they need. But the thing to look for, again, this doesn't change, is, first of all, are we meeting their physiological needs? Yes, we hired them. So we need to make sure we hire people that when they become self-actualized will get excited about the work they do. That's the purpose and values, the things we talked about earlier. Then safety and security. What do they need to feel safe and secure in their environment? The training, good solid metrics, great job descriptions. That hasn't changed. That doesn't require that's generationally, that doesn't change at all. Growth path, they still want to grow. They just don't want to work 80-hour weeks to do it, right? So find out what they need, right? Then create that sense of environment, that team, right? The love and belonging. What is the culture you put in place? Build your culture intentionally. Don't do it unintentionally. Culture will build by itself, but culture needs to be a reflection of your values. So intentionally build your culture. And then, finally, once we do that, we do esteem needs, which is the things we've been talking about, holding people accountable, recognizing people, doing rewards, delegation. There's a lot more to it than that. Hopefully that answers your question. Any other questions before we bring it on home? All right, let's bring this home. As I mentioned, I would not even be aware of this story, but what happened on our way back from deployment about 9 months later. So when we go out on deployment from the West Coast, our first port of call is Pearl Harbor, where the battle group picks up their weapons. We go out. 9 months later, or 6 months later from the deployment, rather, we come back, and our last port of call is Pearl Harbor, where we offload the same weapons, hopefully all the weapons we started with, and then we onload, we take on board a really important cargo, tigers. No, not the animal tigers. Tigers are what the Navy refers to as friends and family who get to ride the ship with us back from Pearl Harbor to, in my case, San Diego, to the home port, right? It's a come to work day. And I had a tiger this deployment. It's my second deployment. My first deployment, I didn't take it and nobody joined me. This time, my dad was joining me, and I was excited. So we pull into Pearl Harbor. We had been at sea for about 2.5 weeks, and I'm excited for many reasons, not just because of my dad, but this is also the first port of call where I don't have to worry about converting money. Oh my God, you have no idea what a headache that becomes. Like, I'm arguing over 10,000 baht, but it's a quarter. You find yourself doing silly things like that at sea. And I was single at the time, and the women were actually American women I was meeting, and since I lived in San Diego, there was actually a chance that I could meet somebody in, who knows, right? I know it's only a couple days in port, but you never know, right? It's not somebody in Singapore where that's not really going to happen. So I was pretty excited to be back on U.S. soil. We pull into port. The Tigers are coming in the next day. I spent all night partying, I confess. Didn't get any sleep. I was 31 years old at the time, and that's what I did. drop my new friend off, take my rented Jeep, and I head to Hickam Field to the charter flight terminal where I'm picking my dad up, and I'm running late. I hate running late, but I'm really pissed off because I want to miss my dad. I don't know what's going to happen and what he's going to end up like on the boat without me or something. And as I approach the charter flight terminal, I'm expecting to see a bunch of sailors and their tigers, their friends and family hanging around, and I see 3 people in the distance. As I approach, thank God I recognize one of them as my dad. And there's 2 other people there, a young sailor I knew from the squadron, never worked for me, but a guy I knew from around the squadron, and an older gentleman that I assumed was his tiger. Pull up to the curb, put the Jeep in park, I get out, give my dad a big hug, say hi to the sailor, he introduces me to his father, grab my dad's bag, I throw it in a Jeep, he gets in, I get in, drive away. My dad looks at me and he says, son, that guy has a lot of respect for you. What are you talking about, Dad? I mean, I know him from the squadron, but he's never worked for me. Then my dad told me the story that I told you, only from his perspective. But it's what he said next that sat with me. It's what he said next that cemented the story in my head. He said, son, he credits you with saving his career. I was 31 years old. This was the first time in my life I truly understood the influence and power we have as leaders. Yes, I was an officer in the Navy, but I didn't really feel like, you see John Wayne and all these characters on TV, Robert Mitchum, Midway, great movie. I didn't feel like any of that. I was just a guy doing his job. And all of a sudden I was smacked in the face that what I did could be so impactful. That's when I started on my path that led me to where I am today, where, as I mentioned earlier, my mission is to replace Thank God It's Friday with Thank God It's Monday. It's to empower folks like you to go back and empower your team so that they feel inspired to do the job you hired them to do, that they get excited about the work they do. And that only happens when you hold yourself accountable and you hold your team accountable and you love what you do, so they'll do the same thing. Rome, a 10, huh. Thank you.